It's NFL week number 7, and I'm here with Ron. We are going to be talking about week number 6. We're going to be talking about week number 7. I've got a couple of topics I want to bring up. Ron always has a couple of topics to come up or that he wants to bring up, and the good thing is we aren't going to sell you anything, and we're not going to ask you for money. Ron and I are just going to have our weekly conversation, exchanging ideas and thoughts because we find it helps us both. How are you doing? Give us your update, Ron.
Well, non-football wise, I've been better, but we'll play hurt right now and we'll get right into the football. Last week, I think both of us gave out some pretty good tips in a way. Boy, it was an outstanding week, only ruined at the end by your Lions. There's a lot of high variance in Lion games because of their aggressive play calling, but I understood that, and they had some chances. I think, they got too cute on 4th and 1 with Goff not under center. A couple of other things. I thought their defense played decently. Mahomes and Kansas City is an ascending team. So I will go ahead and say, I lost that game, but it was the only one I lost last week, so I have no complaints.
I had a crummy week. I had a little bit of an inverse from the previous week because the previous week I said that teasers cost me a lot. There were at least 5 or 6 games where teasers saved disaster. It still wasn't a good week, but it would have been very, very ugly without the teasers last week. They came in very handy. The Monday night didn't work out very well. It was positioned just beautifully, and the Lions didn't help Sunday night, and Monday the Bills losing outright wasn't that much of a surprise, but Washington playing as poorly as they did was a surprise. I don't think that was a matter of Chicago playing well. I thought they did play okay, but Washington didn't look very good.
Yeah, I want to comment on those Monday games. The one thing, once I got around to the Monday night matchup analysis, I was not surprised in the least that Atlanta won the game. Bijan Robinson was going to be a huge headache for Buffalo's run defense. And I tweeted out, unfortunately, that he would get about 100, 105 yards. Well, he shattered that with 170. So he had a monster game. It was an awkward game for Buffalo's defense. And then I want to get back to a point we made last week, Chicago, new coach bye week. We were going to see a different Chicago. And Chris, I mentioned this to you very briefly off air. We got copied a couple of times because people took that and ran. New coaches have a chance to make adjustments if they get that early bye. And I thought Ben Johnson's offense, now we know Caleb Williams isn't perfect, but some of the play calling was really good and caught Washington off guard. They got a couple of guys back defensively. So I think in some respects, this is a conversational item, Chris, is you can't rely completely even on 2025 numbers when a new coach has an early bye, because those numbers may change once he gets a handle on his roster.
No, I agree. You can see extreme pivots, especially let's not forget the year Philadelphia had their success. That team was night and day coming in out of the bye. Were they not?
Oh yeah. It was really a big difference. And we don't have a lot of new coach early buys, but Chicago, I think there was even some notice in the Chicago beat media area and getting some quotes saying how he made some adjustments because of having that early buy. So everybody was on board with that. Was a very critical time for them. And now Washington's schedule gets a little tougher because unlike last year, and we talked about this, Washington is going to have more short weeks, more primetime games, a lot of different things going on. We didn't think Washington would be able to replicate its record, even with a really, really great quarterback at the helm. So they're going to have to outperform 2024 to get back to the playoffs.
A good time to point out that next week is a heavy bye week. You have Jacksonville, the Raiders, the Lions, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, and the Rams going on to their byes. Certainly a good bye timing for the Raiders, no matter what happens this week. Arizona probably could use the bye. Seattle dinged up a little bit, can use some rest. The Rams, obviously, it's a good time for them to kind of settle in, as banged up as they are. And Jaguars might find it opportune. I think, it's a good bye time. It's the midpoint season, almost the midpoint of the season coming up. So it's fair. I just, think it's not good necessarily when you get these week 5 and 14 byes.
Yeah, a lot depends on roster construction. Pittsburgh's already had a bye, and with an older roster and an older quarterback, coupled with a perceived tougher schedule down the stretch, now we know some of the opponents may not be at full strength, but I worry about Pittsburgh in December and January. I don't worry about Pittsburgh now. And if you want to talk about a regret, they could have been in a better scheduling situation than last week. I don't know how many times you and I have talked about when teams play each other really matters. It mattered in Pittsburgh, Cleveland. It mattered in Chicago because of the new coach bye. It mattered to get with Atlanta with time off against Buffalo coming off a loss and a little bit wounded. Buffalo, by the way, I just read this. They have a bye this week, so we're not really going to talk about them. But at the beginning of the year, 2 of their defensive linemen were suspended, I think for PEDs or whatever the case may be. But so they actually have a chance to improve against the rush, not only because they get 2 weeks to realize that they've been gashed, but they're getting 2 defensive linemen back. So we may see a little bit of different Buffalo scheming against the run. Didn't help them last week, as we suspected, but maybe down the road, there's help for Buffalo.
I'm going to make a little notation on that, and then I'm also going to point out, and I'm going to start tracking how these teams are performing coming out of the bye. So we had Pittsburgh come out of the bye and win and cover. We had the Bears come out, win and cover. We had Atlanta come out, win and cover. And we had the Packers win, but no cover. And it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, well, the Packer game, we talked about this, and I think I talked about it with Ted as well on the Thursday show. And that is, I couldn't get past 11 with the spread. I thought this was a tremendous overreaction in the spread. I made it a small play, a 1-star, because I had those 3 plays that were really important to me. But it just looked like too much value. I think you yourself have said even more than I have that you're not sure about Green Bay, how good they are. And, they weren't that great, really. They just eventually they wore out a Cincinnati team that, they've got their own problems. And we know that.
Yeah, I'm not a Packer believer. I mean, after week 2, a lot of people had them going to the Super Bowl. I saw them rated number 1 in the league in some places. I wasn't buying any of that. They never showed up remotely close to that. Well, they showed up on the board at least, but they were never number 1. They've got their issues, which we'll talk about. Going back to last week, I did bring my week 6 stuff here. So the Eagles and the Giants, that worked out okay. I wish Philadelphia had won the game, but had the Giants in that game. Philadelphia laid another turd sandwich. They've been outgained every game this season, I believe. Dart looked good. I mean, maybe he's coming into his own and getting to a comfort level that's going to help the team. He's getting some support. I can't pronounce the guy's name that starts with an S, Scatagories or whatever his name is.
Scadaboo.
But he's very helpful. I'm discombobulated with my notes here. What else? You have anything to add on that game?
No, I'm not surprised the Giants covered. I am surprised at the spread. I did not have an expectation that the Giants would win by 17 points.
No, that was a surprise. What do I have on a note here? I got to start writing in pen. We'll talk more about the Eagles when we get to next week. Denver and the Jets, boy, that was I had my model had Denver good enough to cover. I didn't trust that in the least and only bet them to win. And I consider myself extremely fortunate. When it's bad when the Jets scored that safety to go out by one, and I'm sitting there looking at that anemic Denver offense, sitting there going, "Oh my God, I can't believe after losing 2 games, on dropped touchdowns, now I'm going to get a loss with a safety." And my team can't score, but they did end up scoring, but just did not look good. And Bo Nix obviously is having severe second-year regression.
I think there's a little bit of life at times to the Jet defense, but you and the entire world got bailed out by Justin Fields being quarterback. To go against that Denver pass rush, he had negative 10 yards when you account for the 9 sacks. Indecisive, doesn't trust his first read, doesn't throw wide receivers open. He's not an NFL quarterback. We know that now. My metrics said bet the Jets, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, the Jets are a tough pill to swallow. The Browns let me down. I don't know whether the Browns let me down or Pittsburgh actually was. Do you take it as the Browns didn't show up, or Pittsburgh played well is the reason why Pittsburgh covered?
I take it as the situation was horrific for Cleveland. Don't read anything into that game. They come off London. Pittsburgh has 2 weeks off. Pittsburgh's won 22 in a row at home against Cleveland, all the confidence and stuff like that. I just can't believe I didn't have a penny on Pittsburgh in this particular game because one of my, I have 3 handicapping methods and one of them is situational, and you couldn't ask for a better situation. So if you're on Cleveland, I think the timing of being on Cleveland in this game was not right. But I think in general, the metrics with normal rest and not off London and all that other stuff would have been okay.
Well, that's good. That's the way I kind of read it. I don't think Pittsburgh is demonstrating that they're it just seems like it's a horse race and they're getting the perfect trip so far again.
They would be considered a C+ team. They're still like 14th in my ratings or something like that. I mean, they're making a little progress based on who they're playing. That's all.
Well, we'll talk more about Cleveland. Arizona at Indianapolis. That was a hell of a lot scarier than it should have been. Little concerning. But the Indianapolis teasers came through. They would not have covered the spread, which the model said. So another bad spread game or a model game. And I don't know what went wrong in that game.
I'll keep my remarks to a minimum. Score was exactly as I would have expected. Arizona in the fourth quarter has been just awful, going back to Cliff Kingsbury and even now. They can't protect leads. I honestly think coaching changes are needed.
The Rams and the Ravens. That was one of those games that you monitor and you never have to check in, and then nothing ever, it just seemed like the game was the way it was going to be from the start, and that was all we were going to see. And I didn't have anything on the game.
I didn't have anything on the game. The game flipped at the end of the second quarter when predictably John Harbaugh became John Harbaugh. They didn't score from the 1 yard line. They had 3 tries. Their play calling in that sequence was laughable. And then they didn't show up in the second half. I think there was part deflation, part the fact that the Rams were going to make adjustments against the backup quarterback. And then they brought in Huntley. If I would have paid any attention to that game and heard that they brought in Huntley, I would have had an in-game play on the Rams. I think the Baltimore needs this bye week in the worst way. And they, not surprisingly, one sequence, they got out-coached.
If two teams needed to bye, Buffalo and Baltimore really get perfect timing for their teams.
Yep, absolutely.
Seattle and the Jaguars. That was about what I expected it to be. I teased both sides, and that came in. And that's all I have to say on the game. I guess we'll talk about it more when we look ahead, but still Trevor Lawrence issues.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought it was a great game to watch and not play, so I had no intention ever of playing that game. If the Jags had been off on the road after the KC Monday night game, I would have gone against the Jags. But I just stood still and did nothing other than the fact that I had that throw-in disclaimer at the end of last week's show. Jags 10.5 wins. Somebody mentioned that it was plus 110. My number was even when you got the under on it. I just don't see the Jags hitting 11 wins.
No, 11 is tough. Cowboys and the Panthers, my gosh. Cowboys going and drill them last year. But Carolina's up to 3-3 for the first time since 2021. That was a nice little middle for me with alternate lines, but I didn't have a side in the game.
Yeah, probably if I had to pick, well, not probably, definitely if I had to pick, you take the dog plus 3 in a game like this, and I just left it alone. I just had so many other important games that I didn't want to mess around too much with minor games. Josh Alper, let's give him credit, reporter, for quote of the week. Today, Jerry Jones says, defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus is who I want in a foxhole with me. Well, I would get out of that foxhole in a minute if I had Matt Eberflus anywhere near me, because that defense is bottom 5.
Yes. Suggestion here, there should only be 4 weeks with byes. 8 teams get a bye each week. Weeks 8 through 11, 7 through 10. Definitely they should tighten the window, but I think
that's a television thing. Television dictates it.
Yeah, for sure. I think you could rein it in. How many weeks would that be? That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 6 weeks would be good. Weeks 7 through 12. But you don't want half the league. I mean, you don't want a third of the league not playing for 4 weeks. So that's just too many teams out.
It's tough because the NFL has this nasty habit of, now they give teams choice whether or not to take a bye after London. But if you don't take a bye, please don't schedule them on the road the very next week like they did with Cleveland and other teams. I mean, you just can't keep doing that. Try to level the playing field, at least, where one team doesn't have extreme rest and the other team is coming off Monday Night Football and playing on the road.
The Chargers, another model play that lost, but won because I played on teasers and parlays. Had to sweat that out, though.
So we were on opposite sides in this game because the situational, this was the play of the week for me. For Miami, it wasn't as much about parlays as about Miami covering this spread, 4.5, depending on when you got it. And Miami had a -3 turnover ratio in the game, so the spread cover was clearly earned. Tua tried to mess it up, and in the end, they almost won. I'm glad the Chargers won, but I will say this: Miami was the right side, and I sort of enjoyed the game until Derwin James. If anybody was watching the end of the game and Derwin James had that interception, he could have scored on that play. And we've seen that before with block kicks for touchdowns or whatever. If he scores on that play, he ruins my day a little bit.
Yeah, I could have used that touchdown.
Not me.
49ers and the Buccaneers. I thought, with this, the whole team is basically missing except Baker. It's just amazing how the 49ers didn't have any hope of winning the game in the second half.
Well, 2 words, Fred Warner.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it. That was absolutely it. I think there's no question we would probably agree that Tampa's playing above the metrics. I mean, Baker's playing unbelievable. They're pulling out games. Their defense isn't that exciting. But when Fred Warner went out of the game, it was over. And if you're looking at buy low, sell high, I think we're really close, even with Kittle and other guys coming back. Maybe we'll talk about it when we get to San Francisco. I think San Francisco's in bigger trouble now than they were beforehand.
Yeah, and to mention here that Mac Jones played well. He has 4 out of 4 games over 275 yards.
Yeah, a couple of interceptions last week, and I think the 49ers are going to have to play clean football. This is one running back, McCaffrey, who still hasn't improved his yards per carry. So there's some other stuff going on, and it's not just the offensive line. George Kittle is a fantastic blocker as well. So you're missing too many key parts.
Well, and since you brought CMC up, he's been 93% of the plays run. He's in the lineup.
Yeah,
they can't continue that rate. He's not going to last.
No, boy, is he being overused.
Oh, that's what I'm looking at this week. Tennessee and the Raiders. My gosh.
Well, that was the wee one key. Talked about it. This was a switch. People were upgrading Tennessee because they beat Arizona. They didn't beat Arizona. Arizona beat Arizona. Tennessee was one fumble away from being down 28-6 with 12 minutes left in the game. There was no way that coaching staff could compete against Vegas in this situation. Easy to say after the fact, but I did say it before the fact. So I just think that this was a terrible, terrible matchup for Tennessee. And moving forward, we just have to guess what it means to have their coach out of the building, but still the same team.
Well, I know a lot of people were on Tennessee. I used
Why?
Tennessee. What?
Why?
Well, I used Tennessee in teasers, and I felt extremely fortunate to get that in at the last minute. But
yeah,
it
third straight on
wasn't-
the road for Tennessee on top of everything else.
there was an expectation that maybe they could build on something. I don't know, but
Oh man,
I had that game closer than it was lined, and it was not a full model play. It was not technically a play, but at least they covered the teasers. It helped a little bit.
By power ratings alone, it wasn't terribly out of alignment. By matchup and situational, I would have made this game 8.
That's interesting. You got to say these things before the games are played, though. I didn't hear you say you made that game 8 last week.
No, I wasn't going to tell people that.
Why not?
I have my own agenda. I hadn't finished all the parlays I was going to put with them.
Well, yeah, okay. That's why we can't see you, because you've got a big swollen head that you think you're moving NFL markets.
No, I'm not moving NFL markets, but the people who listen, including the other end of the mic, might move NFL records. And for the record, it's a swollen neck. Just having fun.
Patriots model play, one and covered with the spread. Didn't they? What was that score?
25-19.
Oh, they didn't. They didn't cover the spread. Okay.
Yeah, they did 3.5.
Oh, what? Oh, that was okay. Yeah. So they did, but New Orleans could have. They were driving. They that was a nerve-wracking game for me.
Yeah.
It's just really could have been a much much worse week if I hadn't been teasing stuff.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the model crapped out.
Yeah, I didn't have anything on this game. I don't have much to offer other than the fact that people you listen to the other shows and they're repeating what we say about New Orleans. They're competing, and I just hope that they get a new GM and they work hard to develop the roster, because I think with Kellen Moore at the helm, I think they have the right coach. This year, they just don't have the talent.
Yeah, they're playing hard for him. There's no doubt. So they're going to do their best to stay in games if they are short-manned. The Packers, that was extremely surprising that they struggled a little bit.
Yeah, not to me though.
But you know what? A lot of people are sitting there going, the Packers, had the advantage, seeing Flacco again, and I thought it was the other way around. I thought the Flacco was brought in partially because he just played Green Bay.
Yeah, no, they inserted him in the lineup quicker because he had played Green Bay. No question about that.
Yeah.
And one thing, and I did tweet this out, why I liked the under 5.5 sacks in the game, which I did put out ahead of time, is because sometimes companies base it on what they see with the offensive line and defensive line, and they look and say, wow, Cincinnati can't protect their quarterback. But they haven't had Joe Flacco, who has 19 years of NFL experience, and he's going to get the ball out quicker. He's going to trust Chase. He's going to trust Higgins. He targeted those guys 20 times in the game. So it was a whole different mindset of what he was going to be doing in this game. And I think because of that, you have to look at matchup analysis differently when a different quarterback is inserted in the lineup. And I think that's an edge we could have as handicappers.
Yeah, it's a shame my model did lean Green Bay a little bit because I would have liked to have had some reason.
So let me ask you a question then right now. Your model leans a different way, but you have a different quarterback who you haven't used any metrics. All of Cincinnati's metrics are based on other quarterbacks besides Flacco. How do you account for that then?
Well, that's difficult. I would have in my head, I gave Cincinnati an upgrade and gave them extra credit. So but it wasn't enough to make them a play.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting dilemma. It's a conversational piece to say, well, if Fred Warner is out, what do we do now? If Buffalo has their 2 defensive linemen in, what do we do now? If Chicago has an early new coach by, what do we do now? And I think just using numbers, whether it be me or you or anybody, isn't enough to handle that situation.
And that remotely touches on a subject I'll bring up after we finished last week. But Jordan Love, I think, is walking a different walk. There was more confidence last year. Some of the comments that he's made, we're just trying to go 1-0 and that sort, where he's pulling back a little bit. I think is also another sign that Green Bay is not at the level people thought they were after week 2.
They should become focused because that division is such that you can't take a week off. But Buffalo took a couple weeks off. They're in a division that you think they could handle, although they lost to New England, and all of a sudden they're tied. You can't take a week off in that division in Chicago, Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota.
Well, there was a lot of things wrong with that Lions 4th and 1. You just don't do that on the 1 yard line when you're running a 8 or 9 minute drive. You grind it in. That's the type of play that you would run, in a different situation. Frankly, that's probably, if you had to pick the worst possible time to do that, it would be on either your own 1 yard line or their 1 yard line. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one where I took a deep breath and sighed and said, Stan Campbell, what could I do? You live by the sword, you die by the sword. But on 4th and 1 with Montgomery and Gibbs, you can't be rolling out Jared Goff.
I do not understand how anybody involved can have any question on the rules and what was the requirement to be compliant. That pisses me off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the play call just befuddles me.
So everybody's back on the Kansas City bandwagon all of a sudden. It only took 2 games.
Yeah, I know.
And
I think we were saying they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. And
yeah.
This is a better KC team than last year. You
took the words right out of my mouth. I think this team has the potential to be better than the last time they won the Super Bowl. They've got a solid offensive line. Their defense isn't quite as good as it was that year, but I think their offense can be just as good. But they're going to be completely better, well-rounded as a team, the way that they're looking at this point.
So we're 30 minutes in the show, so I finally get to talk about special teams. Surprisingly, Harrison Butker has not looked good at all. And, kickers, it's a confidence thing. If they want to achieve everything they want to achieve, he's got to get right.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of teams that have been affected by the kicking.
Yeah.
There was an earlier question when we started, what's with all the blocked field goals? We touched on that last week or the week before, where they're paying very careful attention to the nuances with the long snappers, because there's something that the long snappers have to do with their eyes or their hand or just something that are basically the equivalent of a poker towel, and it gives them that little extra, fraction of a second that makes all the difference.
Yeah. And I just think they're rushing the punter or the kicker differently these days. They're using a lot more faster players, and they're putting them in different spots. It's not just from the corners. You see some of these guys penetrating gaps inside the line, and it's not an automatic play anymore.
No, it isn't. I expected Atlanta to show up. And I do agree with that comment that there is no great team this season.
No, not at all.
Honestly, the only team that I think has the potential is Kansas City.
I agree.
I expected Atlanta to show up. In fact, that looked painfully. It looked so easy and so expected.
Yeah.
That I couldn't have confidence in it, if that makes any sense.
I was late to the party, focusing on my 3 top plays. I ended up with a couple of very alternate line parlays. I wanted to get Chicago in something. So I just went with the alternate line plus 7.5 Chicago, plus 7.5 Atlanta, and a 1 star on Atlanta, just because the matchup analysis begged me to take Atlanta in that game.
Yeah, the Chicago game, I really, really hate just having pick'ems. I like to go past the 3.5 on teasers, but I had money lines tied in with Washington for various reasons. I mean, I did have some plus points with Washington, but it would have been a really nice night if I had it set up like I normally do. Washington, they probably deserved to lose that game. I mean, the Bears shot themselves in the foot. They should have won by margin, as far as I could tell.
The 2 Monday night quarterbacks that won, I don't think you could say they're on a gradual curve that they're all pointing up. Penix is going to have good days and bad days. He even had good throws and bad throws. he was thrown behind receivers a lot of times. I don't know if you noticed that, but people had to stretch out to make passes. And I think you just have to take the good with the bad with Penix. And the same with Caleb Williams. There are some things that scheme-wise, Ben Johnson put him in great situations. But then he threw the ball wildly out of bounds a couple of times. I just think you're going to get a lot of good and a lot of bad. I don't know about the Ravens tanking to get a top 10 pick. I think the Ravens, if I'm the Ravens and I have this bye and Lamar Jackson is coming back, I think Pittsburgh is still catchable. Whether that's true or not is another story. But in the Ravens locker room, they have to believe that.
Aren't they about even money still to make the playoffs? I'm going to look that up right now.
Yeah, it's probably pretty close. I mean, before last week's game against the Rams, they were still favored to win the division.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah, City. We'll talk about KC and being 12. Absolutely.
What was that?
When we get to the games, City asked us about KC being minus 12, and we'll certainly touch upon it.
Yeah, the Ravens are only plus 115 to make the playoffs. You can, if you don't think they're going to make the playoffs, minus 135, 130. That was surprising. Well, I have these numbers here. Let's see if there's anything that looks goofy. Patriots are minus 265 to make the playoffs. That seems about right.
Yep.
Steelers minus 300. They got a tough schedule ahead, but yeah. What is their record now?
5-1, 4-1, maybe 4-1. I think
4-1. You can get plus 250 on the no, and I know the remaining part of their schedule is really tough. We should take a look at that.
Yeah, I got to dive into it. Not the names are tough, but how many of those teams are now injured?
The Colts minus 600. That seems.
What are the Texans to make the playoffs?
What do you think they should be?
Very low plus.
They're
130.
They're higher plus than I thought. They're plus 160.
Yeah, I would have made them maybe plus 130. And you might get better odds even after this week because their Monday night road game against Seattle.
That's true. The Jaguars minus 200. Yeah. Broncos minus 250.
They have 30 defensive sacks for Chicago. For Detroit so far. I'm on Detroit. I'm all over the place. 30 defensive sacks for Denver so far.
What's the Chargers record? I got to start putting division standings up here.
I don't remember if they had a bye or not. I think they have 2 losses, 4-2.
I'll get it up over here. What do you think the Chargers should be to make the playoffs?
Minus 220.
Okay, I'll give you that. What happens if I give you a plus number higher than that they don't?
That they're like plus. No, I think they're too well coached to get in the trap. I don't think I would go against it.
You would only bet them one way.
Well, I wouldn't bet them at whatever. It sounds like they're 300 or whatever. I wouldn't bet them one.
They're minus 380.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to beat them. They may lose games, but they don't generally lose by 15 to 20 points or something.
Are they really that locked in?
I'll have to take a deeper dive in their schedule.
Well, they're 4-2. The Broncos are 4-2. Boy, you can get plus 310 on the no on the Chargers.
Yeah, 7 teams make the playoffs, and there's about 9 that have a chance in the AFC. So somebody's going to be out.
I think the Patriots and the Bills, I have more confidence in the Patriots because they have a kind of a rough schedule ahead too, don't they?
Patriots are probably easier than a lot of the teams you mentioned.
Jeez, that 1-5 looks so bad on that Baltimore. I forgot the Texans are 2-3. They're not even 500.
No, they were 0-3 to start.
Yeah.
And that's one team I wasn't crazy about, that they had the bye week after winning 2 in a row.
Looking through the NFC, the Packers are -600. The Lions are -400. Falcons -105. 49ers are still -320
to make the playoffs.
You got to be kidding me. How is that possible?
That's one I want to look up their schedule right now.
They are 4-2.
You got my interest.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions and the Packers are in. Well, let's just say one of them are in for sure.
Oh, 2 teams at least are going to be in from that division.
And there's 3 wild cards?
3 wild cards. Seattle and the Rams could both be in.
Well, for sure, one of them is gone. And then I believe you have to – the Seahawks or the Rams are going to finish in the wild card spot.
Yeah.
For sure.
Seattle keeps it up, absolutely.
And I'm not even sure that both of them don't pass up San Francisco. And then you've got Washington and the Eagles. I mean, gosh. I still think that San Francisco number is too high.
Yeah, 2-2.
Plus 265 on the note.
4-3, 5-3. They came in with a soft schedule, and it's still a soft schedule. Let's see, they have 4. I think unfortunately, they still look like they could get to 10.
Yeah, I just think that there might be some value there. Not enough for me to make a wager like I would like to, but
I think the value, if you like San Francisco not to make the playoffs, might be in betting the game this week.
This week, yeah, that makes sense. I'll buy that. Well, let's see what the division odds are there. They're plus. Well, you got 3 teams involved, so you can't do that.
Right, that's the problem. Yeah. That's almost cost me in the past.
I wanted to ask you. I do my trailing 5 weeks, and somebody brought it up to me. That maybe I want to look at turnover differential for those trailing 5 weeks to kind of align if they've been getting lucky to see that improvement or unlucky to see that fall from grace. Probably one of the most important things you could probably, say as a variable that could be important that would stick out when you're looking at segments of a season. I thought about that for a minute and I said, that's a pretty darn good idea. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've always looked at turnover regression from a year-to-year basis, first of all. If somebody's double-digit plus turnovers, they're going to regress to the mean. It sometimes depends on who your quarterback is. If it's Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't throw a lot of turnovers and stuff like that, or at least didn't in his prime, then you start looking at different things. But if a team had 24 defensive interceptions, they're not going to repeat that. If a team is minus 18 turnovers, they're not. During the year, I look at it too. That's why I think Jacksonville has regression coming. because they were +9 in turnovers. I think they're +8 now. And they have Trevor Lawrence, who's he's not perfect in terms of he'll throw some interceptions, even though he's been better at that this year, but he's still only a 60% quarterback, which is low in this league. So I do look at that, Chris.
That's something that I want to kind of look at. But are you tracking the recency in segmented parts of the season of what the turnover battle has been?
Absolutely, because on my team sheet, it goes, you can't see it because I'm not on screen, but it has every game. So for instance, Jacksonville, after one game, they're +2 in the turnover column. I have a separate column for that. 2 games +3, 3 games +5, 4 games +9. So I see that they had a +1, a +2, a +2, and a +4 in the first 4 games.
So you have that on one sheet that you
yeah, it's an easy eye test for me because it's all on one sheet. I'm tracking sack data also. In a way, I'm doing what you're doing, trailing 5 weeks in sack data. I can come up with that in a second. How many sacks has Jacksonville had in the last 2 weeks? They've had 1. So I know they're not getting to the quarterback. How many sacks have they given up in the last 2 weeks? 10, 13 for the year. So it's very easy for me to see it on my team sheet.
Yeah, the last 2 minutes are far more valuable than for people than it's a shame people are searching for shows that are looking for picks and stuff like that, because the value you're going to get out of content is, original plot and something that, like we just discussed, because I do think, and you can always learn along the way or change what you're doing, and you're always open-minded about what can I do better? What else can I add? And I think that I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to the trailing of those stats myself. So
I'm glad you brought it up, and it is a good point in terms of how we do business here, because whether it's in your metrics and how you divide it by trailing or whatever, or right at handy with my sheet or something like that, that helps me so much with my matchup analysis, because weeks 1 and 2, we know weeks 1 and 2 in the NFL are weird because some teams prepare in preseason, some don't. And then you have all these injuries that happen, hamstrings, especially early in the year. So they're playing with different personnel, and then they've got new quarterbacks, new coaches, and stuff like that. The other thing I'll add to this part of the conversation, I also think it's important after a team's bye week to look at how the last 3 games out from the bye week, has that changed your opinion from 3 games before the bye week? Did they make adjustments, yes or no?
I'm going to write that on the top of my buy sheet here. I've got another issue I'll bring up before we go into week 6.
Perfect.
It may just be like something to think about. It's observational, but it's something worth discussing. And that is, it's talking about somebody was building they're doing over-unders, and it's not something I personally do. My model isn't making over-unders. And but nevertheless, it made me wonder, because I've seen a phenomenal evolvement and development of what this individual is doing with their model and stuff. And he's seeing good results, which, you don't act on. You want to see how it performs, because, you have to have input. You have to have games played. 6 games isn't enough games. 17 games really isn't enough games. So, but I just asked a really simple question, because I looked at, and I mean, I was actually wrong. The impulse to ask these questions was wrong, because for some reason I was looking at a matchup and I was forgetting that the situation wasn't what it used to be as far as indoor outdoor. But nevertheless, I'm like, okay, here are your numbers, but what are you doing? Because in my opinion, I think teams play significantly different when they're home and away. Um, Turf teams do, some turf teams just can't play on grass well. Some grass teams have a problem adjusting to turf. I don't think there's as many of those, but dome teams outside, um, uh, outside teams inside domes. Uh, what's the dynamic of the matchup? Is it a divisional matchup or is it a non-conference matchup? Uh, I can go on and on with all these variables that I think are extremely important. And not just this individual, but I asked a couple of other people, and I'm finding that the people that I know with totals, they're not factoring this stuff in confidently or with some sort of methodology to it, or with confidence. If that, oh well, I'm doing this, and this. It's every single person, it seems like, is confused by what I'm asking, and I just found that to be odd. It's like, well, wait a minute, what I'm bringing up might be the most important part of the equation in the long run. That's going to make the final filter difference, so to speak. Do you have any thoughts on that?
The first two thoughts that came to mind is the switching for players, grass to turf and turf to grass, is for a long time was very helpful in the college game. A lot of times because some of these kids never even saw one surface or the other that much. And then if they, like, you take an Army team, for example, who plays on turf and they play a lot of home games and stuff like that. A lot of those guys never played on grass. It slowed them down. It did some things or whatever. There were a lot of things I used to use in terms of my situational analysis that looked at how many times a team had played on turf in a 5-year span or something like that. And in bowl games, sometimes a team plays all grass and then they play a turf game in a bowl game, and it changes the dynamics in that. NFL, I didn't find it as much, but the only thing off the top of my head is that quarterback accuracy tends to be better in dome situations, which makes sense, especially later in the year. So you look at some of the quarterbacks, maybe for props as well as how you have to go against them in schemes. If you're a defensive coordinator, what do you do when you face this quarterback in a dome? And if you're an offensive coordinator, do you call more pass plays because you're more confident that this guy's arm strength will be not a detriment because it's a dome game situation? So I think it changes the play calling. That's my first thought.
Yeah, I mean, I just never bothered. I just didn't want to tackle the totals formula, but thinking about it today made me wonder. My gosh, if could things be as simple as a lot of people don't factor in stuff that's a lot more important than they realize? Because it would seem, and I personally can't instantly track a lot of the stuff I'd like to track that you probably might be able to have access to, but it is how are plays called in these environments. And, there's other things I'd like to pull up with, conference, non-conference, divisionals, particular team matchups, and the surfaces, the weather, there's just so many things you can analyze that are really, really important. Probably 50% of the equation in my eyes to give me the hardcore number of what the data spits out. And in my opinion, it seems like you're only halfway done at that point. Whereas I think a lot of people think their work is done. My model spit out this number.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's going to be, for me, it's going to be situational specific. Just because a guy switches from turf to dirt or dirt to turd or dome or not dome, it depends on who you're playing, who the coordinators are, or whatever. So I don't think one size is going to fit all, but I think you can use this kind of brainstorming and say, wait, this is happening. I need to make some adjustment. Maybe the odds makers haven't made that adjustment, whether it be a total or even a side or a prop, whatever the case may be, because you think the guy's going to be throwing more. We always think, okay, bad weather conditions, they're not going to be able to complete long passes and this and that, whatever. But I think everybody knows that. The odds makers know, and they shade numbers for bad weather conditions. The question you're posing is, are they making any adjustments for some of the things we're talking about right now? Because if they're not, there might be an edge.
I can tell you unequivocally that people bet teasers thinking that they're winning teasers when, overall, and they're losing teasers. If you go further into the microanalysis of the matchup and the circumstances, and it has to be the same way with totals.
Yeah.
So just something to think about. I thought it was just interesting to discuss.
One thing we brought up, because you gave me a homework assignment 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I just want to reiterate that's really, in addition to what you said about the brainstorming in the middle of the show, that was important. I really feel like our conversation is more about finding things and challenging and questioning each other. And when you gave me the homework assignment about I brought up why is running down, you told me, okay, look at this data and whatever, and come back to me. And it's really coming true. These non-divisional games, you're seeing better running numbers than the divisional games. Again, it's something that we just sort of randomly brainstormed on the show. And I'm going to be using that, especially in the early parts of next year, because I think we uncovered something.
There's no doubt in my mind those are important factors. So it has to trickle into the other ways that you look at these games. It's I don't know a nice way to say this, but it's I asked somebody what shows are they watching nowadays, because the shows that I used to watch, and I'm not saying our show is or our discussion is the best thing since sliced bread by any means, but at least we're trying to, put original thought and try to learn, try to challenge each other, like you just said, and try to have it as a process sort of situation rather than a prognostication type situation. In representing we know it all, because the more you know, the more you don't know. So, but it's what content that I listen to. I listen to what they're having to say, and it's like, well, what about this and this and this? You're gonna spit out these data points that I know don't factor in extremely important information, and it's like if one's not thinking about these other things, well what's the point? This is really important stuff, and it's not in your wheelhouse, obviously. So that's the way I feel when I'm listening to a lot of the content that's out there. It's I don't know if you ever feel that way.
Okay, I'll try to answer the question in a get smart manner, because I program for niceness as a reference for get smart. I listen to different shows than I used to, because I see chasing, I see getting away from a model, I see people just swinging at whatever because they're trying to post a record, and the record keeps getting worse and worse. So instead of scaling back and getting back to the basis, instead of 7 plays, they have 14 plays and stuff like that. I don't see how that does anybody any good, especially the person themselves, to go off on a tangent like that and forget to be grounded. So the shows I listen to are more grounded. They're more basic. They're looking for ideas and suggestions and stuff like that. That's the way I'll answer it.
Yeah, I mean, I relish listening to boring content that is not, all number analysis. It's more applying what's most of the stuff we hear is just regurgitating the same stuff. It's this team's off a bye, it's on a bye, it's it's a first 4 weeks of the season, or team has never done this. This data that they bring up is like irrelevant sometimes. I mean, just completely irrelevant, and it's such a waste of time. But you can't all be about the numbers either, because if it was all about the numbers, the NFL would be easy to beat. It's finding the right formula to apply different bits of data.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the college game, everybody knows the big games and everybody wants to talk about the big games. And my record on those big games, even a stellar season like this, is just not as good because everybody knows everything in those games. So, I'd rather find something else.
Let's get into week 7. All right, I'll give out a freebie here, and I'm not even saying that. Tell me, what do you got on this game? Actually, we've got Hendrickson. I have no injury updates. So,
okay, yeah, I don't have very much on the injury either because there's a lot of guys injured, and it's too hard to keep track of.
Well, he was an issue, whether he's dinged up and stuff. And the only other notation is that. I just made a note that Taylor was smart enough to go for 2 in an uncommon situation where you're supposed to go for 2.
Yeah, that's true. That was good. Taylor's not terrible, but the organization is, because they don't attract a lot of free agents. They probably made a mistake. As good as Higgins can be, and he's healthy, they probably allocated money to him that they should have allocated to the defense. And sometimes you just have to suck it up and say, I have to let go of somebody, even if they're in their prime, because I'm already good at wide receiver with Chase. I already have Joe Burrow, although you don't right now. You've got to allocate money to your weaknesses too, but they didn't do that. The theme of this week for me is my situations are conflicting. I have good situation. And this is Cincinnati's 4th game in 17 days, I think. It's just horrendous for them. And at the same time, Pittsburgh's in a rough situation too, where they do not have a history of covering as a favorite of this stature at this point of the season. So I have negative indicators for both teams.
We know all too well that when Pittsburgh's a favorite, and you start to depend on them, that's when they go down the drain. And I believe we've seen I don't have the information at my fingertips, but I've heard it, multiple different sources and presented in different ways, that the rest disadvantages have not been as big of a deal as people will make them out to be, except those Thursday games.
I think when there are extreme disadvantages, they have been a big deal.
Right. I mean, it has to be, extreme.
And unfortunately, the NFL, according to Warren Sharp at the beginning of the year, and I tend to agree, does a good analysis on that, there were something like between 9 and 11 extreme differences. And in any one year with a schedule maker, there should be 0 to 2. There should not be 9 to 11. It was an all-time high.
I have to chuckle at Roger Long's teaser update, because, I've touched on this for 3 years. Is how many times you'll hear on a show or you'll see on Twitter people posting you can't tease through 0, and it's like politics. It's like you are either the dumbest piece of shit or you are literally vile human being if you tease through 0. There are people that staunch, and they're 100% wrong, and it just makes me laugh. It reminds me of politics, where somebody's saying one thing and they say it with confidence, and they are absolutely wrong. And it's smart people that do it all the time too. Notable people continue to do it. Continue to do it.
I have a general question, just because we're on the topic of teases, that might help the people who tease that are listening to us. Thank you all. Everybody's here. Do you find it more difficult? Do you take more caution when a total of a game is, let's say, 49 or higher? Are you a little bit more scared of teasing those games, or does it matter at all to you because there's more point variance because they're high scoring?
That's so funny you bring that up.
I'm here for you, Cris.
There's a notable person that in the industry that basically, literally, just tried to shame me and ridiculed me and just was attempting to demonstrate how smart they were and really just trying to make me look like shit and absolutely ignorant to anybody that would read what he said at the time. And I tried to respond to the guy, and I have the data. I know what the data is. And, this individual's claiming that they have the data, and I knew he was lying. And I said, okay, well, just, you have the data there, right? Okay. So tell me this, and just give me, this one little tidbit, you won't be, violating your data confidentiality or giving away, some super secret sauce by revealing just some part of the information, right? No, I can't do it. It's like, but I brought it up before. When you have high totals, you have two teams that have dependable offenses. So when you have a mishmash, the center part of totals, that's when you have situations where you have incomplete teams. You have teams that offensively or defensively cannot be depended on. And that causes some problems with the total. So just because the total is high and the variance is high, appears higher because there's more scoring. In some ways, there's some truth to that. But think about it. When you get Kansas City and Buffalo meeting up, when you get these high-powered teams meeting up with each other, how is it that so many of these games are ending up close? I mean, do the research.
No, I brought it up because, again, I'm neutral on the subject because I haven't even played one teaser this year. I prefer the parlays or manipulated parlays if I have teams that I want to do that. Is you can get a backdoor cover on an offensive team or a bad defensive team. So there are ways that high totals can go in your direction if you're betting teases on high totals, because you have either two good offensive teams or, like Carolina and Dallas, two bad defensive teams.
Oh. Anyway, the Bengals are in a situation that is highly, highly good for teasers. Nobody will tell you that, but they're in. They'll sit there and it's not a Wong tease or you're out of your mind.
The other thing is that it's a divisional game. So you have two teams that play each other twice where the rosters, I know Aaron Rodgers is new, but you have coaches who have been there for several years. You have players who have been there for several years. So there are very few secrets for these teams.
And they're going to come to play. They're going to come to play. And it's but it's a teaser situation if the way that I break them down, that has not lost in 5 years and has only lost 2 or 3 times in the last 10 years. So That's the only angle I have on this one. My model leans Pittsburgh, though. That's just a lean at this point. But if that line gets any lower, they might fit the profile.
Yeah, I would like to have Cincinnati. I don't like compressed where you play 4 games in a short period of time.
You know what? I think it's going to be. You know what? I don't know what it is, but I think it's hard to get away from Cincinnati in this situation because Pittsburgh's not as good as you think they are, and you've got the veteran quarterback now on the Bengals, and now he's had 2 weeks with the team. And if Hendrickson's in there, or Hendricks is in there, I think that's going to help, and they won't be as bad as they've been. That's a lot of points. These divisional matchups are tight. They're tight, and Pittsburgh just, as you said, no shows in these situations.
Yeah, short week too.
We've got no Puka, and we have a messed up Trevor Lawrence. I do have the notation that the coach went for 2 in a non-typical 2 situation that he was smart to do it.
Yeah, so I have mentioned before that the coach of Jacksonville had 2 different 1-year stints with the Rams. So these coaches are familiar with each other because Liam Cohen was on the Rams 2 separate times. He went from Kentucky to the Rams to Kentucky to the Rams. So you have a little bit of that going on. You want a quirk in the schedule? This is the Rams have played 6 games, right? So this is the Rams' 7th game. 5 of them have been against the AFC. They will finish the AFC. They have played only 2 familiar opponents in the first 7 games, the Rams.
That's crazy. That's a good observation. I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it does seem like they played. I mean, it is kind of odd because you've got some of these teams that seem to be playing important teams every week, and the Rams kind of out there, waffling around somehow, dangling.
We talked about all the millions of divisional games in the first 3 weeks, and here's the Rams not even playing in their own conference.
Lawrence was sacked 7 times last week. What are the Rams going to do to him?
Yeah, so the Rams, they have 19 sacks in 6 games. So it's typical for the Rams. Actually, they're ramping up their sacks because their players are getting older. They were rookies. They were first, second-year players. Now they're second and third-year players. So, yeah, they're going to get there, most likely. I kind of like McVay in this matchup, first-year head coach versus McVay, who knows Liam Cohen well. So my matchup starts that way, is even though the Jags are very familiar with London, that the Rams are going to have to figure out who to throw to without Puka because he catches 10 in a game. So that'll be interesting.
And both these teams go on to the bye next week, so they won't be facing the same situation as Denver.
Yeah. Speaking of division, here's the Vegas KC game.
It should be a close game. It's a very teaser-friendly game, I think.
The Ram game or the?
Yeah, the Ram game.
Ram game.
Now the Raiders
should be.
Asking about the 12. Somebody was asking about the 12-point spread. My numbers actually have it a little bit higher, but these Raiders find a way. They beat the KC 2 years in a row in KC or something like that. It seems like every one of their games has been tight.
1917 KC won last. One of those games that they barely won. They were 13-point favorites last year.
Yeah, they didn't cover a 10-point teaser.
Yeah, they have been completely unreliable, especially in divisional games, as a double-digit favorite. So you've got that situation again. You said your numbers are a little bit higher. My number, not counting Rashee Rice coming back, would be pretty much right here, 11.5. So I don't see any value in the point spread, but I just wouldn't lay. I think Kansas City is ascending, but these divisional games are tricky, and I would only look Vegas.
Kansas City did a darn good job of stopping the Detroit run. And they had 0 penalties and 0 turnovers. I don't think they'll do that 2 weeks in a row.
Well, they will face a soft pass D. Mahomes looks really good this year.
Miami and Cleveland sounds like a real garbage game, and it is. I don't know what the hell's going on with these Dolphins. I don't think there's any. Tua's been in the league too long to not have known better to spout off like he did about his teammates in the way that he did. What do you think?
Yeah, there are a week or two of bad performances from having an interim coach is what's going to happen. The telling stat for me is that Cleveland has played 2 home games and they've allowed 27 points. They're a different team at home defensively in terms of what their points are allowed. On the road, they've allowed, of course, they played Baltimore and Detroit on the road, but they just allowed 23 to Pittsburgh. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it's more than the 10 they allowed at home to Green Bay. And the 17 they allowed to Cincinnati when Joe Burrow was completely healthy in that game. So now you're getting a Miami team who's not completely healthy coming to Cleveland. I just don't want any part of Miami.
Waddle's averaging 102 yards per game since Hill's gone. That's the only comment that I have written down.
Yeah, the question is always going to be what does Cleveland's offense bring to the table? Jenkins was stopped last week, but Miami's defense is, I'm guessing for you as well as for me, is bottom 5.
Well, Cleveland's gone 11 straight games allowing 17 or fewer points, which makes teasers on Miami look a little bit more of value. So I forget the quarterback name for Cleveland, but he threw the ball 52 times last week.
Yeah, that's Gabriel. He's a timing passer who throws short to medium routes. I personally, this is just me, he doesn't have the arm strength for when it gets colder. I think they're going to, but against Miami, the short pass is going to work, and running Judkins, I don't know about 150 yards, but you could very easily see Judkins, if game script goes well, carrying the ball 18 to 20 times.
He threw it to Judy, had like 13 receptions or so for like 40 yards or 43 yards. Is that true?
No, 5 for 43 to Judy.
Or did he throw it at him 13 times in?
It's possible because he had a lot of misses.
Well, he had 0 interceptions, but 0 touchdowns.
Yeah. I think Gabriel is going to be a pretty careful quarterback. That's what he was in college. And some of that translates. And Miami's pass defense, what is it, 74% or so? So, they're not going to be able to cover. I'm tempted with Cleveland in this game.
Well, you'll get your it fell back to 2.5, so somebody's on Miami. Patriots, 3rd road game in a row. They're 2-0. The statistical history on that is some ridiculously bad return on investment. So we've got the new coach. I'm not sure you get any new coach bump in this game.
Yeah. This is not the new coach bump you want.
No.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm passing this game completely. There's Vrabel coming back to Tennessee. He's probably coming back at the best possible time when the team and the fans would rather have Vrabel than whoever's going on with Tennessee. But Cleveland's stats aren't perfect. If you look at their metrics, I mean, they can't be rated in the top of the league or anything like that. I don't know what your numbers say. My numbers say middle of the road right now.
For the Patriots?
Yeah, defensively.
Um,
Because I value pass defense and it's not there. I think they're stopping the run just fine.
I haven't even looked.
13 sacks, but they've allowed 18, so their sack ratio is negative.
They're middle upper.
Yeah. I mean, they're not, they just happen to be playing the league's worst team. Yeah, I'm passing on this one.
Oh, come on. You got to make a commitment here.
All right, I'll make a commitment. I will not watch the game. And you're right, third in a row on the road is not an ideal situation.
Yeah, the numbers say New England's the value here, but the problem is the situational weight that you have to put on it.
Right.
The Saints and the Bears. Now, my number comes right on the number, but boy, this seems like a really good situation for the Saints. Rattler's improving. They could have won that game. This is a short week for the Bears. I don't know why, but I remember the New Orleans and Chicago having some really interesting games in the past in Chicago. And it's one of those daytime games that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. It's not, prime time, so they won't, be as into it. They're jumping up and down to themselves just to the fact that they're coming off of a good Monday Night Football win. It just seems like a great spot for New Orleans.
I think the odds reflect that, because according to my power ratings, Chicago should be a little bit bigger of a favorite. I actually made them 7 in this particular game. The one thing you haven't mentioned is this is the Dennis Allen game. Fired from New Orleans, and now he's defensive coordinator against Chicago. And he wants to, even with the short week, he's going to be focused on doing some stuff. He knows who Rattler is. He's gone ahead and charted. He knows a lot of what the Saints are defensively as well. So I think those variables, and this is the situation again that I have, this is a week of conflict for me. So it's not going to be as busy a week for me in terms of higher value plays. At the present time, I'm on the sidelines in this game because there's a lot of variance.
Do you agree with is Rattler settling in? He only had 6 incompletions the last game.
What Rattler's done this year has been surprising to me in that I think he's thrown 1 interception all year. And I would have pegged him for an average of 1 interception per game. And he had that streaky interception streak in college too. And he doesn't have a great team behind him. He's had some offensive linemen shuffling around. Kamara is here, there, or whatever. But he basically has one receiver in Chris Olave. Taysom Hill is just barely getting back. So that's the surprising thing to me. And so therefore I agree with you. He's settling in, and he's kind of quelled talk about bringing in the rookie Slovis, or I can't remember who the rookie is that they drafted, but it's unimportant right now because Rattler is playing above my expectations.
And as we previously discussed, they're playing hard for this coach.
Right. That's why I'm off it.
So we've got the number 30 offense. Is that correct? That has been outgained every game of the season. It was 1-9 for third downs last game out. Going into Minnesota off the bye.
Yeah. We know that Philly 4-2. I think we're both sitting here with weird plays, knowing that Philly should be about 2-4 right now. But again, a lot of conflicting situations for me. I have stuff that are good for Philly, and I have stuff that's bad for Philly. I have stuff that's good for Minnie and bad for Philly. We're looking at what, 1.5 now. It was 2.5, I think. 3 would have triggered an automatic Minnesota play.
Let's see if I can find this. If I'm not mistaken, the running back for Jacksonville has more yards this season, the last 2 games, than Barkley has this entire season.
Yeah. Barkley's one of those guys who, I don't know, his yards per carry has never been this low. We're talking about 285, 40, about 3.4 per carry or so.
Well, the other issue too is when you're going to 4 straight tush pushes, then that has a lot to say about your offense. And Hurts is sailing balls. He's not close in some cases, and I don't know whether it's confidence or skill or what's going on with him, but that team, you've got Jalen Carter. Is Jalen Carter out again?
He might be, although he's had 10 days.
There's other people that were banged up also. So you had Smith lead the team. Devarius Smith retired.
Yeah, that's true.
Which you don't retire off of a team if things are going well. It's maybe that who knows? Maybe he saved face and they were going to cut him. I don't know. The Lions, the fans were pissed because the Lions didn't sign him, and they were waiting till after week 1, so they didn't have a full season obligation of I forget specifically what, but Philadelphia snapped him up before week 1. But they knew something was up with the guy probably.
Do you care who's the quarterback for Minnie this week, whether it's Wentz or whether it's McCarthy? Russell says he's 99% sure Wentz will get the start. I guess I'm kind of leaning that way based on what you just said there.
Yeah, you know what? At least you know what you're getting there.
And Wentz has been playing with confidence.
Well, I think Wentz is was the London game. He didn't look good, but
he got beaten up.
Yeah, but the next game they did fine. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I thought so.
Well, he threw 80 passes in London because they were there twice. Or not, Dublin and London.
Yeah.
Overseas, he threw 80 passes, 55 out of 80, 2 interceptions. They got 21 points each game.
Roger,
for me, it's in the middle.
This is the week that they get credit for another year on their retirement numbers. Why would Smith retire then?
Yeah, that's weird, huh?
That's something that either that's inaccurate or something's off.
I'm proud of Roger for knowing this stuff about the retirement.
Well, if he's correct, then we would wonder why Smith would retire without 1 week away. That makes no sense.
I know. You have a lean one way or the other in this game? I guess I'm leaning Minnie.
Yeah, you can't back Philadelphia at this point.
Yeah. Continuity in coaching for Minnesota. Flores has had 2 weeks.
I argue the Philadelphia side. It's a harder side to argue.
Yeah, it is a harder side to argue.
But the Minnesota teaser looks like the easiest thing in the world, and when things look like the easiest thing in the world, we know what happens. So usually, so that's my only concern. Carolina and the Jets. Carolina 3-3, first time since 2021, but this is a road game for them, and they're getting their wins at home.
So they beat Atlanta. They crushed Atlanta, but their last 2 wins, how much credit do you want to give them for beating Miami's 74% defense and Dallas's 73% defense? I think we're in the Bryce Young tease game again. That, he is good enough to start. We should build around him. And then there's going to be games when you say, we shouldn't build around him. We need a new quarterback.
Who knows? But they're facing the right team to let it happen again. I mean, this Aaron Glenn, he's had some real blunders.
Yeah. He knows nothing about offense. Absolutely nothing. Why you don't snap the ball at midfield at the end of the first half is beyond comprehension.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, some of the stuff he's done. I'm not. I think we can skip over this game. I think this is a tease it both ways type of game, and other than that, I don't see any value on either side.
We can skip it.
Indy and the Chargers.
Well, now we're talking about two good teams.
62% of their drives are scoring. Jones, 71% completion percentage. It's their second, as you brought up several weeks ago, you would be looking at this. It's their second trip back to that stadium this season.
And they do not have fond memories of the first time.
No. But they're doing very well on red zones. When they get in the red zone, they're not settling for field goals. 9 for 9 red zone last 2 weeks, I believe.
Yeah.
I got it.
This is an interesting game, obviously, because Indy's found a way to win. They're learning how to win, and they're doing it well. Actually, both teams found a way to win, and that's the mark of teams that are squarely in the playoff hunt. These are games that the old Charger regime would have lost for sure. And just any year except for this year, Indy would have lost last week's game as well. So both teams are upwardly mobile, as I would say. Indy has one negative indicator based on their performances. And it's going to be interesting to see how Jim Harbaugh schemes against Daniel Jones. They have a lot of playmakers defensively. Maybe this is a tougher test going against a tougher defense, but Indy scored 20 or more points in every game. So hard to fault them.
Well, they're probably going to be on defense. As Russell points out, they're short on cornerback again, and it's a cluster situation.
Probably Quentin Johnson's going to come back, which will give them 3 weapons. It's not as important. Quentin Johnson himself, he's a decent player. He has a lot of TDs this year. But if you have him on the field, that means you have to cover 3 good receivers. And I know other shows failed to make the mark here when they said that the Chargers do not have a good tight end situation. I completely disagree with that. They stole a tight end in the draft in Gadsden. He's played 3 games. He has 15 receptions. What more do you want out of a rookie than 5 receptions per game? I think the Chargers are well equipped to play, stretch the seam with their tight end. Gadsden came in camera ready. He fought off injuries to suit up in week 3 or 4. And he's a fine player. And I think if they get Quentin Johnson back, it's going to be a lot for Indy to deal with in the pass game.
Well, something's got to give. They were only 2 for 7 red zone trips, and that's not a typical Harbaugh type team. Usually they've got a way to grind it in, and they haven't been doing it.
Yeah, one of the problems with the Chargers, unfortunately, is injuries. They lost 2 stud tackles, obviously, in Alt and Slater. And then they lose Najee Harris, who would push the pile in those goal line situations you're talking about. And then they lose Hampton, who's perhaps the best running back of the rookie crop from last year. So they're dealing with a lot of adversity. And so we're speculating to see whether or not Vidal has another good game. His good game against Miami is a good game against Miami. That's what it means. Not that Indy has the greatest run D, but it's a lot better than Miami's.
I saw this scroll across just as the show was starting. I would show it if I I was better organized, but I'm not. Have you seen the Chargers uniforms they're going to be wearing?
Well, instead of reacting to what Marcus said via, I'll say it verbally, I'd say a 3-point downgrade for yellow uniforms.
They are something else. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, if they're really going to wear that, I'm going to have a tough time picking them.
The Giants and the Broncos. Giants coming off a big game. Dart looks good. He's mobile. Denver's defense is tough. What do I have here? They're at the top. They're at the top on sacks, offensive and defensively, aren't they?
Yes, 30-6. It's an incredible ratio. Last year's ratio was also incredible. 63 sacks, 24 allowed. Now 36. They're outdoing them. I mean, this defense is lethal.
They've got the best third down defense, the best red zone defense. Their problem seems to be Bo Nix, second year. It's not looking pretty.
What they don't have is they didn't make friends with Roger Goodell this week. The great equalizer, because if you look at matchup analysis, Denver's going to win every matchup analysis in this situation. But the Giants have 10 days off, and Denver just played in London. I mean, it helps. So it's got to help a little bit for both. If you just have one of those, if Denver was playing in the continental U.S. and the Giants were off 10 days, okay. But you have both of those situations. So I think you have to give a little bit of leeway in the power numbers to the Giants because of that.
Yeah, that's a long trip back to Denver. It's a couple of extra time zones.
And Scadaboo, your friend, he just goes through brick walls. If there's any fatigue in the Denver front four with the run defense, which is okay, it's a okay run defense, but you better believe Scadaboo, the path to victory is to make sure he's part of the equation for the New York Giants.
Well, this is going to be a real test for Jones. I mean, this is 7's a lot to lay in this situation under these circumstances, but they also laid a real turd last week. It was at the it just felt like it was embarrassing to be representing the country playing that role. You would think that this is a potential bounce back effort.
Well, they should have the attention. Peyton should have the attention of the team because they were so sloppy in that particular game. But I'm scared of this game personally, just because of the conflict with the rest and everything.
I'm going to check that teaser situation.
Before the home fans rallied with Jackson Dart, the Giants were a poor play at home and were a better play on the road.
That's true. Yeah, just it's just an awful teaser spot for the Giants. You'd have to use a 10-point teaser.
Yeah,
you don't want to be teasing that. It's not a good teaser. Washington and Dallas.
Washington.
Pickens averaging 120 yards. Or was that 100? Yeah. 120 yards per game the last 4 games.
Yeah.
Their offense is that should be right at the top, right?
Yeah, and they're going there's talk that CeeDee Lamb will be back.
Wow.
And also talk that McLaurin is going to be back for Washington. That's why you saw the total rise.
I just saw, let's see, Kyler Murray's at practice. Harrison Jr. is limited in practice. Christian Watson, limited in practice. I thought I just saw Ridley doesn't practice on Wednesday. I thought I saw a McLaurin update. What do you got on this game?
Wow. Let's see. I generally don't like, here we go, Washington now facing adversity and a short week. So I know they get a get-well game offensively playing against Dallas's defense, but I'm not going to be involved with a 55-point total or whatever, but I could see Dallas scoring a lot of points on Washington with one day less to prep on this. In general, based on the series and whatever, I don't think I want to lay points with Washington on the road. I wish I trust Dallas's defense more. The only thing I would go with this divisional game right now is that I think Washington is skeptical about the way things are going right now. In general, they should be a better team than Dallas, but you may be catching Washington at the right time.
Well, if it makes you feel more confident in backing Dallas, just remember that Baltimore's defense is rated higher than Dallas's. McLaurin.
Normally, that would be a no-brainer.
Yeah. McLaurin is limited in practice today. Hendrickson is still questionable. Kittle limited in practice. Pearsall won't practice. Purdy limited practice.
You have a feeling on Washington, Dallas? Is it a teaser type game where you can get Dallas over 7?
I think it feels like a teaser both ways game. It does.
That's what City is saying. Cowboys teaser spot. I mean, you got the ultimate backdoor cover possibility with their offense.
Not much else to say there. The Packers.
Yeah.
We touched on that a little bit. They've got the best third down offense.
We used to talk about Baltimore getting off to double-digit leads and then fading them after that because Baltimore had trouble in the fourth quarter and stuff like that. We may want to shift our attention to Arizona when they get off to leads because they're not holding leads either.
Here's another thing. Your special teams focus. You should be pointing out that only the Jets have fewer takeaways this season, right?
The Jet. Oh, then I don't know, which team are we talking about here?
Green Bay.
Then Green Bay, yeah, they have 2 interceptions.
That's a complete reversal from last year, right?
Yeah, they were plus 12 last year, and now they're minus 1. So yeah, those are things that, and you wonder why they're 2-3 against the spread is because sometimes those are hidden nuggets where you think they have the same roster and everything, but they're not getting the same turnover luck.
Yeah, this Arizona, they show up early in the games and then they just can't close them out. They can't hold the leads.
Yeah, I really think the GM gave them enough bodies defensively to make them better. I'll say it again. I think they need some coaching overhauls.
Atlanta, that's a different, any other time you'd sit there and go, there's value on Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think there is value on Atlanta regardless. But
I cannot set a power rating right now for San Francisco. It's useless. I don't know who's playing or who's not. I don't know how much to ding them for Fred Warner. I know it's got to be a point probably, but then is Kittle coming back? Is he not? Is this and that and stuff like that? And Atlanta's on a short week. I agree with you completely. Why can't we just have a visiting team that's on a regular week right now? Because I worry that San Francisco's going to be in trouble.
You know what? It seems I heard somebody else describe this. I think it was Colin. He said he saw this being a high, scoring shootout type situation. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Defense a little run down after a short week for Atlanta. But both of these, San Francisco, it still seems like if I had to get over a touchdown, I'd take it with Atlanta.
So let me ding myself a little bit here, because with San Francisco's schedule, we knew it was a fourth place schedule, and we both said, wow, this is an easy schedule. That's why they were favored to bounce back in the NFC West. My indication, because this is another kind of teaching point, is I set metrics at the beginning of the year. And if they're not meeting them, maybe they're meeting them in other people's eyes, but they're not for me. It gives me value. San Francisco, I set at 45 defensive sacks to start the year, above average. They have 7 in 6 games. I know Bosa's out, but that's just one player. They have 7 sacks in 6 games. The way you want to beat Michael Penix is by putting pressure on him. What if San Francisco is unable to put pressure on him?
I agree.
Randy says, Atlanta could be in a letdown. And I agree with that. First Monday night game in 7 years. They better not be in a letdown, because they're in a dogfight of a race right now with Tampa. But there could be a natural little bit of a letdown and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, this San Francisco team, they're going to be in trouble somewhere.
Randy also pointed out that Dallas is in field goal range at midfield.
Yeah.
CD Lamb is on pace to, unless he suffers a setback, he's playing.
Yeah. To be honest, the only side I'm looking at is Atlanta, but I got to assess what I expect out of Atlanta in this game.
Yeah, but that's a good comment too. Russell has it. Let's not forget it's Sunday Night Football, so Atlanta's.
That's key. That's key.
They've been in some other primetime games last year, and they had that goofy game against the Raiders, I think, and they show up for the primetime games.
Not on, it's funny because their Monday Night Football history is not good, Atlanta. So they were fighting their own demons in a way.
Tampon Bay and Detroit. Tampon Bay has basically Baker Mayfield versus the Lions. The Lions are going to get back McNeil. I have not seen an update on Decker, but you would think he would be back if he was close to being in last week. Coming off of a loss, and as we know, I believe the Lions are 12-0 off of a loss. So they respond well. They're coming back to home. It's a primetime game. It's a lot for Tampa Bay to overcome.
Yeah, so you have an extra day to recuperate from Kansas City, so that'll be out of their mouths. They also lost at home to Tampa last year, 20-16. So there's going to be a lot of fire in what Detroit brings to the table. Baker Mayfield may be without another weapon in this game with Ibuka, I believe, scheduled to miss this game. We don't know if Evans is coming back. He'll have an extra day and a half because Sunday Night Football. So we might see Evans.
Yeah, I thought I was under the impression it was unlikely, though.
He's running out of people to throw to.
I know that. I don't know how he's been doing it, but Baker no receivers versus Hutchinson with no corners or safeties.
Yeah. If you're looking for, it's not the situations, because I had like 3 situations that favored Vegas so much over Tennessee. And we're talking Tennessee and not Tampa. But if you're looking for a team that I would say, yeah, I would take the money line on and see about what I want to do with it, it would probably be Detroit.
Houston at Seattle. Houston's 2-3. We know that from earlier in the show that started long ago.
Yeah.
Interesting spot, frankly.
Yeah.
They're due to get back 3 key players, the last I understood. We've got Darnold, the number 1 PFF rated quarterback. Minnesota's got to be kicking themselves. They've got the number 1 receiver. They've got number 1 yards per play. There's a lot going on for Seattle.
And why is it that every week Seattle's games to me are the most fascinating? It's just, what's going to happen now? How is Darnold going to do? What's the defense going to do? What's the coordinator going to do? I just find this team fascinating, but not necessarily one that I've actually used in terms of spreads. I'm 0-1 on Seattle games this year. I'm probably, I really don't have enough work done on this game to form a particular opinion. I mean, the line has moved up. It moved up to 3.5, and now it's going down to 3 a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it was a service play by at least a couple of services already. So you do have Stingley there to cover that receiver. Who the hell? What's the guy's name again?
Smith Njimba.
We need a nickname for him.
I'll call him SN. Yeah. Yeah, and that's going to be a fascinating matchup because Houston has played shutdown pass defense for the certainly last year and this year. They were under 60%, which is incredibly hard to do last year. And they're under 60% again this year through 5 games. They're 2-3, and they're still under 60% in their pass D.
Amazing.
So there are no throws by Darnold that are going to come easy.
Yeah, you would think that he's going to be. There's going to be some issues. I think that there's. I see value on the Houston side, regardless.
And my power numbers would make this under a field goal. Yeah. I have a feeling I'm going to be sitting back and watching the game and seeing what's happening.
Well, that's boring.
Houston, I mentioned it earlier in the show. I wasn't excited about Houston having a bye coming off 2 straight wins.
I think I'll definitely have involvement with both of the teams coming off the bye, Houston and Minnesota. It's just a matter of how I choose to do it.
Yeah. So you're more bullish on Houston having that week off than I am.
No, I'm just I just let me see if I notice anything off the top of my head here. How the hell is this possible? Well, where do you have Houston's defense rated?
Upper half in the league. Certainly top 5 in pass defense. A little bit better than average in pass rush. Maybe average in pass rush. Only 5 games for them though, and a little bit and right around average in the other areas. So above all, certainly, if not in the top 10, extremely close to the top 10. I would have them probably in the 6 to 10 range off the top of my head. It's the offense that's holding them back a little. They've allowed 12 points per game. Is that right?
Yeah, I've got it. Houston is in the bottom half of the league offensively, facing the number 4 defense that in my model.
You have Seattle as a number 4 defense?
Yeah.
I don't have them there. They're allowing almost 70% pass completions, and I tend to weight that a little higher. They have 20 sacks, and they have a great run defense. So they're probably top 10. I'll take it back, but the pass defense is holding them back probably from top 5.
Let me check something here.
Yeah, Russell talks about Houston. I'm not sure that Houston's a complete. I don't think Houston has played its best game, even though they won 44-10 against Baltimore. I think that was more about Baltimore. So I agree. I don't know where Houston is. I know Houston's capable of better. Stroud, 3rd year, and now they've had the rest and stuff like that. But their offensive line isn't perfect. They're not running the ball perfect. I just need to see a little bit more about Houston to know where I should slot them.
I wanted to make sure I had the right week up.
Yeah, that would help.
I was just double checking because I'm looking at a handful of things here, and I'm like, really? Yeah, it's the right week. My gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm still fiddling with what I want to do this week. It's just not as clear cut from a situational standpoint as I'd like it. And right now, no power ratings are screaming at me. I'll look at it closer. I liked last week. I'm not sure I like this week so far.
I'll have to take back what I said. My model disagrees with me. It has Green Bay much higher than I would have thought.
Okay.
So I don't know how that's possible. So I guess I can't believe my own eyes.
We didn't talk about that line, and I just made all this mention about power ratings, but that's the line that is most. I know Murray may not play, and it might be Brissett and stuff like that, but I don't show Green Bay as being 6.5 points better at Atlanta.
I do. I show value at 6.5.
Yeah. I'm not great at first half plays unless we're talking week 18. Week 18 is a different animal, and I love week 18, quarter halves and whatever. So I'm not the expert by any means on first half, but I'd be tempted with an Arizona first half.
I've already thrown in some Houston teasers. I'm not jumping up and down to take 3.5, but I'm getting spoiled with these cushions. So, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, if you believe in the Houston defense, they could keep it under double digit, even if their offense isn't quite going.
That's the one thing that I didn't mention. I knew Brissett would be fine last week. I just didn't think that he would be that dangerous. And I think that that's another problem for Green Bay this week because I think Brissett can keep him in games. He especially when he's fresh. A lot of these career backup quarterbacks, once they get into the lineup, they feel rejuvenated, and they often, it seems like, a significant portion of them start off and have a great 1 to 3 games, and then they fold like paper napkins afterward. I believe that he fits that category. I think he, just when you think you might be able to live with the guy, he sneaks out of the bedroom at night and gets arrested.
I don't know. Yeah, you have to go back to the dark ages, but the first name came to mind was David Humm of the Raiders. So that's the dark ages. Brissett generally doesn't stretch the field. So to me, I was surprised that he did stretch the field last week. So I would have to take a closer look. By the way, Marvin Harrison is off a concussion, I believe. So we have to monitor whether he's playing.
Yeah, I mentioned that a few moments ago that he's limited practice, concussion protocol.
I'm all talked out.
Okay.
Got anything else?
No,
Closing
no.
comments?
I'll be in touch. Hope you feel better and finish your Korean drama tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Episode 12, Korean drama, Confidence Queen. That's my tip of the day. Good luck with everybody's football. I don't know about, maybe Cris will be back, but tomorrow, Ted and I will be on the Inside Blitz, health permitting. So tune us in tomorrow, Thursday, for more NFL talk.
That sounds good. We'll be back here at the same bet time, same bet channel, noon next Wednesday.